Professor Krell surveyed his wilderness survival class with satisfaction. 23 students from 15 species, all looking nervous about the practical exam. "You have 1 hour," he announced. "Build a shelter that will protect you from the elements. Use only materials from the simulation environment. Begin." The holographic forest materialized around them. Temperate climate, moderate resources, no immediate threats. Standard difficulty. Students scattered, some gathering branches, others looking for caves, a few attempting to weave leaves together. Krell noticed a human. Jake Morrison hadn't moved. He just stood there, eyes scanning the environment with predatory focus. "Mr. Morrison, the clock is running." Jake nodded absently, turning in a slow circle. Then he moved. What happened next would be studied in survival courses for years. Jake sprinted to a fallen log, tested its rot level with a kick, and dragged it to a spot between 2 trees. He stripped branches with his bare hands, actually tore them off with grip strength that made several students flinch. He wove them into a frame in under 3 minutes, movements precise and economical. He gathered armfuls of pine needles, moss, and leaves, layering them with a speed that suggested he'd done this 1,000 times. He used a sharp rock to cut cordage from inner bark. His shelter took shape, an A-frame lean-to with insulated walls and a slightly elevated floor for water drainage. 10 minutes after starting, Jake stood back, brushed off his hands, and said, "Done." The class stopped working. Krell stared. That's not possible. The theoretical minimum time for basic shelter construction is 35 minutes. Jake shrugged. "It'll keep me dry and warm." "Isn't that the point?" Krell approached the structure, scanning it with his datapad. Wind resistance, excellent. Thermal retention, above standard. Structural integrity, impressive. Water drainage, optimal. "Ow," the professor finally asked. "I grew up in Montana. My dad had me building emergency shelters from age 7. Jake pointed at features. "This is a basic debris hut. Takes 10 minutes if you know what you're doing, hour if you're learning. Good for 1 night, maybe 3 if weather holds." A Vexillary student, Teshkor, clicked mandibles in disbelief. "But the efficiency, the resource selection..." "Earth," Jake said simply. "Our planet tries to kill us with weather constantly. Hypothermia can set in within 30 minutes in wet conditions. You don't have time for pretty. You need functional fast." Krell pulled up Jake's file. "Your homeworld classification, Class 12 Death World. Your species evolved building emergency shelters. Evolved surviving when our environment wanted us dead." Jake corrected. "Shelter, fire, water. You master those fast or you don't pass on genes. Humans have been doing this for 200,000 years. It's basically instinct now." He walked over to his shelter, ducked inside, and emerged with modifications. "See? I can add a fire reflector here, ventilation here, make it good for a week if needed. But you said 1 hour for basic shelter." "I gave you basic." Another student, a prey species from a garden world, raised a tentacle. "Mr. Morrison, how many times have you built emergency shelters?" Jay considered. "Real emergencies? Maybe 30 times. Practice? Few hundred. Dad was big on be prepared for everything." 30 emergencies? Krell voice cracked. "You've needed emergency shelter 30 times? Montana winters, hiking accidents, got lost twice as a kid, flash floods, that time the truck broke down." Jake counted on fingers. "Yeah, about 30. Normal childhood stuff." The class exchanged horrified looks. "Normal," Teshkor repeated faintly. "He calls that normal." Krell looked at his carefully designed 1-hour challenge, meant to teach basic principles over multiple class sessions, and realized he'd made a critical error. He'd forgotten he had a Death Worlder in class. "Mr. Morrison," he said slowly, "how long would it take you to build a shelter rated for Class 8 hostile environment?" Jake glanced around the simulation. "What kind of hostile? Temperature? Predators? Weather? Toxic atmosphere? All of them. 40 minutes, maybe. Hour if I'm being fancy about it." Jake grinned. "Want to show them?" Krell canceled the rest of the exam. "Class, Today, we're learning death world survival techniques from someone whose species didn't have a choice about learning them. For the next 3 hours, Jake taught 22 stunned students how humans had turned "our planet is trying to murder us" into "here's how to build a house from dirt and spite in under an hour." The next week, enrollment in Jake's impromptu Death World Survival Workshop hit 200 students. The university had to move it to a lecture hall, because sometimes the most valuable education comes from someone who learned that 10-minute shelter isn't impressive. It's called not dying today. And on Earth, that was just called Tuesday.